Hello everybody, Ava here with a quick info video on the Long War of the Chosen beta version that is currently available. So just want to give some information on that, since my next upcoming campaign in my next YouTube series is going to be played on that beta version, and if you want to play it, here's everything you might need to know about it, or maybe you already know. So first of all, why is there beta? So if you go to the workshop, this is the Long War of the Chosen workshop item, the workshop page. And for the longest time, since the release, there was no work done on Long War of the Chosen, because the two main devs that worked on it for the years decided after the release that it's done, it's good, it's finished. So it was until I think in June or July this year that somebody else took over the reins. Good old Tedster took it upon him to keep working on it, fix some outstanding issues, and also work a little bit on the balance. Because after almost 2 years of lots of people playing it, turns out maybe it wasn't as finished as we would have liked. So some minor changes were made that you can see in the change notes. But the more everybody was looking into it, the more ambitious the potential changes were, but also the more they would impact ongoing campaigns. So in order to not brick everybody's campaign who's currently on this version, the beta version was created, or rather taken over, to test any bigger changes in that version. So how do you get to that beta version? Well, if you want to play it, your first thing would be to unsubscribe from the Long War of the Chosen main mod itself. Then you can very simply go here to the Long War of the Chosen workshop, click on the beta, and then subscribe here. It has the same requirements, so if you have a running version of Long War of the Chosen at the moment, then you can switch to the beta. Keep in mind, the best way is to start a fresh campaign with it, although there has been significant work to make it work with ongoing campaigns. But since there might be small things that might break, since you can't really test everything, starting a new campaign is the best choice there. Now, what is in that beta version? There is a text file that I'm also going to be linking in the description of the video that has all the change log, all the changes that are in here. Keeping in mind that this is a work in progress, so this is state of October 12th here, so there might be still future changes going into this. I know there's some changes currently being tested to the Hunter and the Warlock. So this is not complete, this is work in progress, and also this is all subject to feedback. Right? If enough people play the beta version and say, okay, this is not working, or this doesn't feel balanced, then there might be some things that are going to be changed. But let's have a quick look at the patch notes. I'm not going to go over every single item here, but pick out a few that are going to be impactful, or that you might have seen in the past that have changed. Especially the first one here, the IED bridge on a network tower. We just had that in our previous campaign, where suddenly the whole bridge exploded and people took a lot of damage. That's been fixed. Wonderful. Then lots of minor fixes. I saw one big one here. No, this one here. The infiltration timer now has a 2-hour padding included to account for the Skyranger travel time. So I was already always doing this manually. Like if I had 4 days, 20 hours to infiltrate, I was aiming for 4 days, 18 hours to actually get my 100% infiltration. So going forward, I no longer have to do this because the game already adds these extra 2 hours in. Then super nice quality of life feature here. Geoscape pauses when they hit 125 or 150% infiltration. So that is where you have guaranteed the enemy strength being 1 level lower. So you can guarantee a quick pause on Geoscape to then infiltrate before force level goes up or strength goes up or anything like that. And hey, you can no longer steady weapon if you have no ammo, because if you reload, even if it's on autoloader, it cancels steady, so it prevents you from wasting your steady. Small quality of life changes, so this is mostly here in this section. Bug fixes, quality of life, like also extended information. Aim assist is automatically defaulted to off. It's like every day somebody's asking, hey, all my shots show 0%. Now that automatically gets turned off, so those questions will stop, hopefully. Several new maps here. New VP extraction, new crate race, network tower maps, some more variety, which is always fantastic. The avatar project is now revealed once you get 2 pips on the clock, so it's no longer tied to your liberation progress, which also used to cause some confusion where first-time players were not advancing their liberation chains fast enough, and then when they liberated a region, suddenly they had a full avatar clock. So this way we guarantee that everybody knows what's happening. And there's an interesting new second wave option, hybrid difficulty, which increases the tactical difficulty, so the in-mission difficulty, by 1 level over the campaign difficulty, so what's on the strategy layer, which is really I think like going hybrid on basically with a commander strategy layer and then legend tactical layer is an interesting option, because a legend strat layer with the increased intel cost and much more advanced strength on the map is the biggest hurdle in difficulty, I would say, and this gives people a step in between. Instead jumping from commander to legend, they can do commander then on hybrid, and then move to legend if they want to advance. And here an interesting change. Enemy flight paths missions show now the type of UFO found. I think in my last campaign I made a change to my localization files to show that already, and I'm gonna assume maybe that Templar was inspired by this change to implement it in the game, to have that information for the player so that you can make a decision based on that info. Now, we have some changes to several classes, so let's look at those. Starting with the Sharpshooter. So we no longer have Longwatch in the main tree. Nobody was taking that anyway. Everybody was taking low profile, so that moved into its slot. So the big change here is that there's now reposition, which is a movement after you take a shot. I think I might be a movement after you take a shot at a flanked or exposed enemy. I would have to look. The idea is to have this a little bit more play into the snapshot build. Same thing here. Weapon handling, which reduces your aim penalty for targets that are too close, is now automatically granted by snapshot. So it's and then several abilities here that didn't used to work with snapshot now work with snapshot. Chain shot, rapid fire, disabling shot, precision shot. So maybe snapshot finally becomes a viable build. We'll see. We'll see. Probably one of the things I'm gonna test out in my new campaign. The technical has a change to Firestorm. Firestorm is now a dash move, a usable ability with a dash move. So if you activate Firestorm, you select a tile that you can move to, and the unit dashes to that tile or moves to that tile and uses Firestorm on this tile. Makes it obviously more usable since you have much bigger range because you can dash to a location. I'm assuming, I haven't tested it yet, that it also helps with targeting. Like previously, I was always, activating Firestorm, checking what is the AoE of it, then, counting tiles on the potential target where I want to use it on. But now the targeting cursor should hopefully show you what tiles you're hitting at the tile that you're moving to. So that's huge improvement. I hope that it actually works this way. Otherwise, shame. And it's usable with quick burn. So you can quick burn Firestorm with a dash move, and then you still have 2 actions and you just dash to a new location. So that feels really, really strong. And we'll see if that actually works out this way. Then a big change to Concussion Rocket. It deals flat damage. It doesn't provide smoke to the targets you hit. It's guaranteed disorient and a small percentage chance to stun. So actually kind of useful. Might be worth picking up now. Then 45 cooldown on Assault, reduced from 5 to 4 turns, which still to me means I don't think that makes it. I don't think that is the main issue with Fortifier, that it had a long cooldown. Or that 4 turns is much better than 5 turns. I don't know, that doesn't do much. I don't think that's going to be a top pick for anyone. This is I'm conflicted about this one. So scrap metal, which is when you get a kill with a primary weapon, you get ammo for your sort of shotgun for the ranger. So this is now in the tree at Gunnery Sergeant, where Tactical Sense was. Tactical Sense was moved to the XCOM deck. I don't care about Tactical Sense. Nobody really cared about Tactical Sense. So that's great. That's a really reliable way to get ammo back if you want to build a sort of ranger. The only downside is now your sort of ranger no longer gets rapid fire. So previously, rapid fire is kind of the way to still do damage if you can't get into sort of range. So you no longer have that, but you have guaranteed scrap metal, which I think is probably the better trade-off. Hoping to get scrap metal in the XCOM row was always so much of a gamble, but yeah, now it's guaranteed. Cyclic Fire Nerf. Cooldown increased to 3 turns, and aim penalty is now -15 instead of -10. Big hit. Now, I still think I'm going to pick it up. It's still going to be strong on gunners. It's going to be really good against the Chosen, and then the cooldown probably doesn't matter. You're probably less likely to just use it willy-nilly, because a 3-turn cooldown is noticeable, and you want to have it for those big enemies. So when they're on the field, you're going to keep Cyclic Fire available. And it makes then, gives only more reason to pick up Rapid Fire and or Chain Shot to have your multi-shot abilities on your gunners. Now, the biggest rework is the Templar. The Templar no longer has a ballistic shield. So we're back to Templars having 2 Psy Blades when they attack. They also lose the One for All ability, where they then turned into high cover when they activated it. They no longer have greater padding, which is the wound reduction from their shield. They no longer provide low cover to other enemy units. They are not themselves permanently in low cover. So all of this is out, which also avoids some of the funky mechanics that you could actually trap your Templar in a position where they could no longer move because they were blocked by their own cover they were providing. A lot of jankiness with the Templar shield. They do have, however, a deploy shield ability to give them shield HP, similar to what One for All did. It's going to provide more, but they no longer get, of course, the low cover state. They can be flanked like any other units. They have no longer protection from being flanked. But the shield gives them crit reduction. So with this and then possibly a nanoscale vest, you're almost immune to the crit from flanks, but not fully. It also has the psionic shield thing that I think it's similar to what you had from Reflect and Deflect in vanilla. So lots of graphical change, some other changes here. So generally going away from this unique mechanics of him providing cover and crit immune, it's no longer a unique snowflake in that kind of way. It's more like a regular soldier with some extras. I haven't played with it, so everything here I say about the Templar is just based on what I'm seeing here and what I've seen other people do with it. Volt damage was reduced a fair bit, like from 8.5 at the top end to 6.67. And it no longer deals increased damage to psionic units. That's actually a fairly significant damage nerf, even though that kind of looks like it's like a 30%, not even. It seems very small on the bottom end, but I'm not sure what exactly 2.67 is going to tell me here. I guess it's the average, right? Because it's not a fixed damage. Anyway, the idea is that Volt acts more of a utility role than a damage role, which you can see with the Aftershock aim bonus. So targets you hit with Volt, you now get 15 additional aim against those targets. Previously you got 5. So becomes much better utility to make targets easier to hit. Since the Templar shield is gone, shield Bosch is gone, nobody was taking that anyway, so good riddance. And there's now an ability called Soul Shot. Ranged psionic bow attack that is aim-based, does large single target damage. Those are the average damage numbers for the different tiers. Can crit and does not end turn, costs 1 focus. Since I haven't played with the Templar yet, can't really say too much about this. Since it replaces Shield Bash, I'm fairly certain this was in the first row, so it's up against Indomitable and against Invert, so that's probably then a dead pick for me, because I like Invert too much. It's also, since it's aim-based, I'm really not too sure if it's going to be any good. It's like, if it's aim-based, does not end turn, doesn't matter, because at the start of your turn, you're probably not in a position where you can shoot at somebody. So you have to move and shoot, and is that worth it? Aren't you better than moving and attacking? It might be a decent shot against mechanical units or units that don't take cover. But I'm not convinced that this is going to be super great. But again, I haven't played with it yet. Probably have to try it out at some point. XCOM deck change. Blade Master has been added instead of Combat Engineer. Yeah, Combat Engineer had no point there anyway. And here we have more additional aim now for the Templar. Then the Templar Overcharge ability, where you get additional aim and crit based on the focus that you have. Increased from 5 and 10 to 10 and 15. But it only applies to melee attacks, so it will not apply to that Soul Shot. Or to your pistol abilities, if you equip a pistol on them. It's a decent buff. My only concern is that it then again entices you to sit on your focus rather than use your focus. But that's always been the case with Overcharge. Alright, then for our tanky boys, Sustain reduces wound recovery time by 2, makes Sustain a little bit better. On the other hand, Crusader's Rage was nerfed, that it reduces wound recovery by 6 instead of 8, so that those 2 points were basically shifted from Crusader's Rage to Sustain. Brawler applies to all melee attacks regardless of original positioning, which is, I think any charge attack wouldn't be affected by Brawler because the enemy charged from outside your Brawler range. Probably also nerfs your damage against Chosen that have Brawler for any of your melee units if you do any flash attacks. Terrorize increases the Volt radius by 1. So after the Volt nerfs, it makes it more competitive. You have a bigger radius. Only downside for me is a little bit if we take this new utility of Aftershock now giving 15 aim. I like the radius increase, you know, I can hit more targets and give more aim to that, but if I panic them with terrorize and their advent units, they will hunker down. So instead of gaining 15 aim, I'm losing 30 aim because they're hunkering now. We'll have to see how it plays out. Like, the radius is still pretty good, but again, there's a little bit of an anti-synergy between the aim increase and enemies hunkering if you actually make them panic. Void Conduit cooldown increased. Yeah, that was probably necessary. It was kind of ridiculous being able to use that every single turn if you had the focus for it. So now it being on 3 turns, much more reasonable. Amplify boost, the next 2 attacks by 50 instead of 3 attacks by 35. I like that a lot. Makes it much more noticeable, the boost, and something to actually use on like Chosen and stuff like that. And new animation for Apotheosis. Okay. Let's move on. I'm really gonna do probably a Templar start again, just to play around with all the new changes in the next campaign. Skirmisher buffs. Raven Justice cooldown reduced from 4 to 3. Okay. Well, that's actually a nerf, not a buff. Total combat bonus grenade throw range reduced from 3 to 2. Which, fair. You know, it's kind of... Total combat does so much. Getting a little bit weaker, but not particularly noticeable. If you're still into the whole grenade throwing thing, then total combat is probably still pretty good. And my favorite change, battlefield awareness cooldown reduced from 4 to 3. Yes. Wonderful. Alright, then the dreaded Banish nerf. The aim penalty for Banish is increased from -20 per shot, from 15 to -20. So you're probably not going to be landing all 6 shots of your Banish. Additionally, the Reapers can no longer get a bunch of XCOM row abilities that they could have gotten to increase their aim. So it's really hard now to stack aim high enough to get a full 6-shot Banisher. On top of that, the cooldown was also reduced from 2 to 3 turns. I'm torn on whether or not this kills Banish fully, or if Banish is still going to be useful. You probably have to combine it definitely with Focus Fire. Everybody was hopefully doing that already. But maybe some holo targeting options. Maybe buffing the aim of your Reaper. Definitely equipping scopes on your Reaper over laser sights. It is still going to be useful, I think. Something else we have to play around with. Psionics. Cooldown of Soulfire was increased from 2 to 3 turns. But Soul Steel, the one where you get some healing or some ablative shields from Soulfire, no longer increases the cooldown. So definitely a significant nerf to early game psionics that couldn't really do much outside of Soulfire. But we'll see how that works. Additionally, the cooldown of Fuse. Well, first of all, Fuse is now a 1-action, non-turn ending ability. It used to be a free action. But it was basically too strong. You would always take Fuse. Especially also since it was leading to stasis and domination, which you wanted to have anyway. So everybody had Fuse. It was a free action. You were just blowing shit up whenever it was off cooldown. Now it's costs you 1 action, but the cooldown is 0. So you can use it every turn. So you get much more uses out of it, but it costs you an action. So you have to balance it out with your other abilities. We'll have to play around with this, see how that feels. With the cooldown here for Soulfire, you also have more space for this, and we'll see how that goes. And then Soulstorm radius increased by 1. Last time I tried it, I wasn't a fan of Soulstorm. Maybe we have to give it another shot. Then some psi rebalance on the enemy side, where sectoid, sectoid commanders, and priests have their psi stats reduced, so that your willpower of your soldiers actually matters. So you can actually resist mind spins again, because, yeah, in the current version of the game, mind spin, you would basically always panic and very often get mind controlled. So I like to see some resists again. Looking forward to that. Stasis now counts as a hostile action. That probably means it triggers reaction fire with covering fire, kill zone, etc. Might also limit whether or not they can do it on a yellow alert. I don't know. Then some other minor changes. You now get Staff Sergeant in the Black Market a little bit later, which I think is good. You no longer get that feeling where the Black Market outlevels your regular barracks, so that's fine. Basic PCS are now a tier 1 hack reward, so I guess you see them earlier, or maybe they don't muck up the replace actually good rewards. Not sure. Some nice buffs to the Alien Hunter weapons. The Bolt Caster grants lock and load and concentration, so you no longer grades as long as you hit. And if you get a kill, you automatically reload. This is a weapon I haven't built in a long time, and I'm looking forward to using it again. No longer shreds, gains 1 armor pierce, that's fine. Significantly decrease the cost of all Alien Hunter weapons. Also decrease the research time for getting these Alien Hunter weapons, and decrease the Proving Ground project time. So it's going to be really easy once you have a Proving Ground to get these out. Secure for missions get the under-infiltration sit-traps like our full savage missions. I wasn't aware they weren't getting that. Facility leads start later, and also a great change here. Smash and grab missions, the crate smash and grab missions, not the crate extraction, now always have at least 5 crates. It used to be 4 to 6. And I'm sure I complained about this in the past, where like it feels like too big of a swing whether you get 4 or 6 crates. It's a 50% difference. That's too much. So now it's at least 5. So 5 or 6. And there's a chance to get a large depot sitrap where you can get 7 or 8 crates, which then requires you, of course, to have 7 or 8 people on the mission if you actually want to get all those crates. Interesting choices. And, you know, if there's one thing I really like, is making interesting decisions on the strategic map. Alright, then we have some big changes coming for the Chosen. General overhaul how the Chosen work. So first of all, they're now split into 5 tiers. Previously it was 1 tiers, so to kind of smooth out their progression. Chosen hit points have been standardized. So it's just a little bit more smoothed out. They lose most of their armor because if you're prepared for the armor is useless anyway, and if you're unprepared, you kind of seriously boned. So this like makes shredder units much less as of a necessity against them. The combat readiness, which is the buff they get on themselves when you damage them, but they're not flanked, so they're not running away, used to grant them 10 aim and I think 10 defense. Now they get explosive damage resistance instead, so you can no longer just sit there and spam grenades on them and don't care about them getting more and more aim because you're grenading them to death. Chosen HP gets reduced a little bit on the first tier of Chosen. Now that they have 5 tiers, obviously smooths them out a little bit more. And the anti-overwatch ability, moving target, was nerfed a little bit. So it used to be 30 defense, 50 dodge. Now it's only 15 defense. makes it a little bit more vulnerable to reaction fire. You probably still don't want to use it or rely on it. All chosen now activate once your game hits force level 3, so that's roughly 4 or 5 weeks into the game. So previously it was that whenever you contacted a region after force level 3, you would reveal a chosen, or when you trigger retaliation at one of your existing regions, you would of course reveal the chosen that is in that region. So you could actually have situations where people were basically making contacts before force level 3, then sitting on their free regions, avoiding all retaliations, and you could delay revealing and activating a chosen until August, September in the game or something like that. So they now get automatically revealed. Then they gain knowledge based on so one is deemed the first chosen and the other one until the second or third, and they get 9, 8, and 7 knowledge per month, so that kind of spaces out the chosen Avenger defense, so you're no longer getting screwed with all Avenger defenses triggering in the same month if you were unlucky. That could happen before. Yeah, and so generally some changes here to the knowledge game. Yeah, 5 tiers instead of 4, and some action changes. So they no longer do chosen trading all that often, so they don't get the huge list of abilities they used to have. But the individual abilities they're getting are much stronger individually. Chosen sabotage is something they can do from the start now on, but so they're not doing retribution all that often, and of course not doing training all that often anymore, but the sabotage has already also been brought in line. I don't want to say nerfed, because nerfed feels like the wrong word. It was ridiculous before, and now it's much more reasonable. So, for example, previously, if you were scanning a scanning site and the sabotage hit your scanning ability, it would add 14 days to the scanning. Adding 4 days is still gonna hurt, for any scanning sites are usually less than 2 days normally to scan, but now it's like 4 more days. Okay, it's still worth it. I remember getting this like on contacting a region. Suddenly it takes 14 days more, and I just thought, okay, I'm not going to this region anyway. So some of these were really, really ridiculous. Really happy that it's no longer quite as bad. Then several chosen abilities have been changed here. Again, there's some other chosen changes in the works right now, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail here. But generally, like the main idea was to make the chosen fights more fun. And also give you some tools to actually counter the chosen abilities, but also make them still a danger and not just a thing you just kill and then move on. So we'll have to see how that all works out. But I'm kind of wondering if this video is getting too long, so I'm not gonna go over all the changes here for all the chosen. One thing I will quickly point out though, the Warlock. The Warlock will now instantly summon his followers and casts Warlock Greatest Champion on Scamper. So when he spawns in, he instantly summons 1 or 2 buddies, puts Warlock's Greatest Champion on them, which makes him take much less damage, and you need to take out that champion. I'm a little bit concerned how that plays out on stuff like the Chosen Stronghold, obviously, and also on the full retaliation, where you have to run around and collect all the guys. The reinforcement drops in if that makes him survive too long, that you're still fighting the Chosen while reinforcements are dropping in 3, 4, 5 at a time. We'll have to see how that plays out. Nerfs to the Hunter's mobility Love it. More, please. Hunter loses Omnivision, gains standard squad sight instead. Yes. Changes to the retaliation modifiers. So they reduce the strength of retaliations by 3. They previously reduced it by 5. But also the base strength for retaliation has been decreased. So there was a huge difference, and I think we saw that in my last campaign where we were playing without the Chosen, where the retaliations are bringing a lot of enemies if you don't have the Chosen there. Like with the Chosen, an inter-retaliation is usually 7 to 9, sometimes 10 to 12, and without the Chosen you are fighting 20 enemies. So that brings it a little bit more in line. Some buffs or changes to the Chosen weapons, hopefully to make them actually useful. And then some notes here. Obviously, anyone going into the patch should read that, how it can modify existing campaigns, etc., what to keep in mind, and how the shield compatibility works. So if you're patching an existing campaign to the beta, you might want to respec your Templar, and there's also an option, some files you can change if you want to keep the old Templar version. It's still all there. Yeah, and that's all about the patch notes. I'm excited to start that new campaign, and it's gonna go live later this week. And we'll see how that new beta plays. And I'm super happy that 2 years after the release of Long War of the Chosen and 6 years after the release of War of the Chosen, there's still a very active modding community, and everything is still being worked on, and the game is still alive and thriving. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.